What is up, my beautiful gemstones? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be discussing the strange and mysterious disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi. And let me tell you guys, this one was a doozy. As we all know in this community, and particularly those of us familiar with my work and the cases and situations we oftentimes discuss here on this channel, mysterious disappearances aren't really anything too unusual. In fact, they happen all the time, and much of the time they're never solved, and the person or people involved seemingly disappear right off the edge of the earth, never to be seen or heard from again, and without anyone ever figuring out what it was that happened to them. Most of the time, we discuss these types of disappearances in the realm of someone vanishing in the wilderness or off of some dark street corner somewhere remote in the middle of the night when no one else would be around to witness whatever happened to them. However, sometimes in cases like today, we come across strange and bizarre disappearances in places where no one would ever suspect something like this to happen. I came across one such place where some strange and bizarre disappearances happened, and I was actually shocked when I looked into where this place is. So Vatican City is a part of Rome, essentially, and it's located in Italy. Vatican City, according to Wikipedia at least, is a landlocked sovereign country, city-state, microstate, and enclave surrounded by and historically a part of Rome, Italy, as I said. It's also the seat of the Roman Catholic Church, and it's absolutely stunningly beautiful to look at. Its soaring cathedrals, museums, basilicas, and chapels are a place that make you think you are totally and completely safe while you're surrounded by them and within them, and that nothing bad could happen to you while you're there. However, I came across an unsolved crime that, at least to me, could possibly hint at a dark underbelly of crime that lurked just beneath the surface of the gorgeous and holy facade of this city. It's the seat of one of the world's most powerful and influential religions, but that didn't make it any safer for the young girl involved in the disappearance we're going to discuss today. Two young girls, actually, because there are two separate cases here. We're just mainly talking about the one. Stay with me. Keep listening. And really, when you think about it, no place is safe when you're dealing with not only unstable and possibly evil people, but also when you're possibly dealing with the supernatural as well. And honestly, by the end of this case, I had no idea which one it is. I have no idea which one it is that we're dealing with. As always, let me know what you all think in the comments below at the end of this, and let's just jump right in. The official name for Vatican City is Vatican City State, Vatican City, and it's a walled city inside of Italy's capital, Rome. In area and in population, it is the world's smallest independent state. I'm not a Catholic. I am especially not a Roman Catholic, but from what I understand, it's an established institution, a sacerdotal monarchical state. And I have no idea if I pronounced that correctly, but that means that the Pope, along with the Holy See, spelled capital S-E-E, it's all incredibly important. It's sacred and holy to the more than 1.2 billion followers of the Roman Catholic religion throughout the world. Vatican City is also a huge tourist attraction, and inside its museums are some of the world's most famous sculptures and paintings. And inside the walls of the city itself, there are many famous cultural sites. The Sistine Chapel and St. Peter's Basilica are just two that I thought of off the top of my head. While this is all well and good, we did not come here today to talk about the culture of the city. Okay, so let's jump in to talking about one of the most well-known and high-profile disappearances that took place in Vatican City State. It happened in 1983, the year that I was born, and involved a 15-year-old girl, a sophomore in high school named Emanuela Orlandi. Emanuela was a Vatican City citizen, and her father held an official position under some title at the Vatican. He basically organized all of the Pope's major functions. On June 2nd, 1983, Emanuela hadn't shown up to her music class, which she normally attended 3 times per week in Rome, but no one thought much of it right away because Emanuela's sister said that the girl had called her and had worriedly told her that she was running late because she had met with an Avon representative and had been trying to get a job selling Avon products. I don't know how old most of you are watching or listening to this, but I was born in 83, and I remember even into the 90s, and into the early millennium how popular Avon and their products were. Emanuela eventually made it to the music lesson and afterwards told a friend about having met up with the representative and how she was hoping to be chosen for the job of selling the Avon products. She had been walking with this friend while telling her excitedly all about her experience, and then she got into a green BMW and drove off in the passenger seat. She was never seen or heard from again and left her friend behind at the bus stop. Emanuela's parents were concerned pretty much immediately when she didn't return home from school that day, though there isn't much clarifying information. This led me to believe that the music lesson had taken place sometime during the school day, or more than likely immediately after school. Because she had the same lesson 3 times a week every week, her parents knew what time she should have been arriving back home for the day. They contacted the authorities right away, but as usual, the authorities didn't take it seriously and told her parents that the 15-year-old had more than likely just gone to a friend's house and that it wasn't unusual for girls her age to go with friends without letting their parents know. This always aggravates me, particularly as a mother, because we all know our kids well enough to know whether or not they're the type of kid who goes to friends' houses without asking us, or if they would always let us know and or ask for permission first, especially at 15. Obviously, or at least obviously in my opinion, if Emanuela was the type of teenager to just go off with friends without notifying her parents would have been the first to know that's what had been going on and wouldn't have so quickly panicked and called the police. But I digress as usual. And when Emanuela still hadn't shown up back home after school the following day, they called her music instructor and they were told that she hadn't shown up for her lesson that day and the teacher had no additional details or information for the now very desperate and extremely frantic parents. Over the next 2 days, Emanuela's parents placed several ads in the local newspaper, practically begging for the public to give any information as to what could have happened to their daughter. I've never heard of anything like this, like the parents placing ads in the paper to try to get info about their missing teen, but maybe in Vatican City or in that area of the world in general at the time, this was a very normal thing to do. It could even be that it was a normal thing to do in the United States at the time. I would have no way of knowing. So if you do know if that was something like you've ever heard of happening here in the United States or like in Canada, even in Europe, let me know because it just sounded really bizarre to me. They listed their home phone number in those ads, and this is where the case starts to take strange turns into the world of the bizarre. Almost immediately, Emanuela's family started to receive a ton of phone calls from all different people, and the accents of the people were wildly varying as well. The first call had come in on June 25th, and the male on the other end of the line identified himself as a 16-year-old boy named Pierluigi. Pierluigi claimed that he had been out with his fiancée at a local restaurant called Piazza Navona, and he claims that they had met Emanuela while there. He said she had introduced herself as Barbarella, and that she had told them that she had run away from home with money she had saved by selling Avon products. At first, no one took any of this seriously because it was just so bizarre and really couldn't have possibly been true because Emanuela hadn't even started selling the Avon products yet. She hadn't even gotten hired for the job. However, this person identifying themselves as Pierluigi knew a lot of very specific details about Emanuela and about the case itself, which did lead her family to listen a bit more closely to what he had to say. He said she had been carrying her flute and had been wearing glasses that she told he and his fiancée she didn't like and didn't want to be wearing. That was true. She didn't like her glasses and she loathed having to wear them. The person calling himself Pierluigi also stated that Emanuela had cut her hair since running away. On June 28th, a man calling himself Mario called the family, and he claimed to be the owner of a bar near where Emanuela took her music lessons. Mario said that a new customer he had never seen before had been frequenting his bar, and that she looked a lot like the photos he had seen of the missing girl Emanuela Orlandi. He said the stranger introduced herself as Barbara and had short black hair. He said she told him she had run away, but that she would be returning back home for her sister's wedding, which that never comes back. Like, I never found any more information about, like, if she had a sister that was getting married, when the wedding was taking place, or, like, it was just another weird bit of information. Obviously, by this time, almost a month later, her parents' search was a desperate one. Thousands of posters with Emanuela's photo had been posted all over the city, and even the Pope had come forward multiple times, publicly pleading for whoever had taken her to let her go and just bring her home. Around this same time, the phone calls to the family's home not only increased in volume, but in menace as well. A series of phone calls came in telling the family that Emanuela had been taken by a group of terrorists who intended to negotiate her return home for the release of a man named Mehmet Ali Akga, a Turkish man who had been taken into custody by police for attempting to assassinate Pope John Paul II in St. Peter's Square on May 13, 1981, which was approximately 2 years before Emanuela disappeared. One of the people who called the family the most, and who was seemingly the most persistent, was a man with an American accent who never gave a name, but whom authorities and Emanuela's family referred to as the American. He had a very elegant accent, according to them, and spoke a lot about the exchange between Emanuela and the Turkish would-be assassin. The American demanded that the Pope agree to the exchange and that it be carried out within the next 20 days. He was incredibly persuasive, this so-called American man, and at one point even played an audio recording of a voice that very much did resemble Emanuela's, even to her parents, and he offered more evidence of actually having been the one to have taken her as well. He sent a photocopy of her music sheet from her lesson on the day she vanished and what appeared to be a handwritten note from her. The American also claimed that the previous callers, Mario and Pierluigi, were in on the whole thing and that they too were trying to negotiate for the release of the Turkish assassin for the schoolgirl. The American made a total of 16 phone calls to Emanuela's parents' home, and all 16 were traced back to different public phone booths. These leads were very promising, but it all went nowhere because the authorities said that there was no real evidence suggesting that the kidnapping of Emanuela Orlandi had anything to do with the previous assassination attempt on the Pope. They refused to move forward with this angle and were not willing to negotiate with terrorists for the release of the girl. I just wonder, how did this dude get the music sheet? How did this guy get audio? I mean, how did he get any of this if he didn't actually have her? So whether or not it was all for the release of this would-be Mehmet assassin guy, isn't that enough to make you want to look further into this? Maybe he kidnapped her and did something horrible to her and was just using the assassination or attempted assassination thing, the hostage negotiation release, as a cover, knowing that the authorities wouldn't negotiate with them or with him. So why not keep looking into it? It's like they took him at his word that all of this happened in order to negotiate the release of a would-be terrorist. When really, I don't know. Do you guys understand what I'm saying here? It's just very frustrating. On July 8th, the family would receive yet another bizarre phone call from a complete and total stranger. This time, the man on the other end of the line was said to have had a Middle Eastern accent. This man didn't seem to be playing around, and he told Emanuela's parents and the authorities that he had the girl, that he was a part of the same previously mentioned terrorist organization, and that he would kill the girl if they did not release the prisoner, the same man, Mehmet Ali. This unidentified man gave the time frame of 20 days and said Emanuela would be killed if Mehmet wasn't released by that time. Once again, the authorities refused, and no further calls about the case ever came in. The case remains cold to this day. They still have not found her, or they still know nothing of what happened to her. In the years leading up to today, from when all of this happened, the authorities have followed up on numerous tips, clues, and leads, including alleged sightings of Emanuela herself, but nothing ever led anyone any closer to finding her, or at the very least finding out what happened to her. MU said about this case, quote, "Various theories have been put forth over the years as to what happened to Emanuela Orlandi, ranging from the somewhat plausible to the truly bizarre, all with varying degrees of evidence to back them up. One is that the girl had actually, in fact, been kidnapped by a terrorist organization in a bid to free Mehmet Ali Akga, just as had been claimed by the various mysterious phone calls. The main suspect in this scenario is a Turkish ultra-nationalist neo-fascist youth organization called the Grey Wolves, to whom Akaka belonged. Akaka himself would go on record as saying as much in a prison interview with an Italian news program. In the interview, Akaka claimed that Emanuela Orlandi had been captured by the group and that she had eventually been moved to a cloistered convent where she remained alive and well, although there was no credible evidence to back up these claims, end quote. Mehmet Ali Akaka would continue to make these statements throughout his life, and as recently as 2006, he wrote and published a letter claiming that the Grey Wolves had abducted both Emanuela Orlandi and another young woman in 1983 in order to try and exchange them for his release. The other young woman's name was Mirella Gregory, and the letter claims that both of them were taken to an undisclosed royal palace in Liechtenstein, which is a German-speaking microstate in the Central European Alps. Mehmet Ali Akaka was released from prison in 2010 and subsequently gave some interviews making paranoid and very bizarre claims. He said that the Vatican had been the one to hire him to assassinate the Pope, and he also said that Emanuela Orlandi had been taken by the Vatican, that she was alive and well still and living a peaceful and secluded life in a monastery as a nun in an unnamed country in Central Europe. However, most people involved in the case say there's no real hard evidence or proof that anything he said is true, and that more than likely he's nothing more than a ranting madman who was just happy to have some attention being paid to him finally. Despite that fact, it's been a very popular and long-standing theory that the Vatican itself did have something to do with Emanuela's disappearance, and even those who aren't sure they believe that's true sometimes do admit to believing that the Vatican did everything it possibly could to stall the investigation into what happened to the 15-year-old every chance it got. So one theory here is that Emanuela was kidnapped under the orders of a man named Paul Marcinkus, who at the time in 1983 was an archbishop who ran the Vatican's bank. This theory came to light after Emanuela's father, Ercole Orlandi, uncovered evidence of Marcinkus having been involved in a lot of illegal activity around the time of his daughter's disappearance. Paul Marcinkus was questioned a lot about Emanuela's disappearance, but he is said to have used his power and influence to avoid answering most questions about the case or his alleged criminal involvement otherwise, and whether or not he was involved is information that went to his grave with him when he died in 2006. In 2011, the alleged connection between Emanuela's disappearance and the connection to the Vatican's bank would become even more mysterious and strange when a man named Antonio Mancini claimed that the kidnapping had been orchestrated by the Italian mafia in an attempt to negotiate the Vatican repaying money it owed the organization in return for the innocent 15-year-old girl. It's said the amount of money loaned to them was very large, and these claims are said to have links to the death of banker Roberto Calvi, who is known as God's banker. In June of 1982, Roberto's body was found hanging under Blackfriars Bridge, his pockets having been stuffed with tons of cash and precious gems. This was said to have been due to a falling out with the mafia, where he had been murdered for his involvement in a botched money laundering operation. Possibly the most bizarre lead to have come in throughout the years came in 2005 when an anonymous person called an Italian crime show called Who Has Seen? So it's Who Has Seen ? And that's the full name of the show. This caller suggested that the secret to solving Emanuela's disappearance lie in opening the tomb of an infamous gangster named Enrico De Pedis. It was claimed that this well-known mobster murdered Emanuela as a favor to the vicar general of Rome at the time. This was a man named Cardinal Ugo Poletti. Ugo's former girlfriend even backed up this claim when she allegedly admitted that, while he was still alive, he admitted to killing the girl during their relationship, which seemed to back up the bizarre and mysterious claims that had been made all along about there being some sort of mobster/mafia connection to her disappearance. Many others called tip lines and called into that same show to seemingly back up these claims as well, leading many people to think that some new information of value could be gained by opening the long-deceased mobster's crypt. A man called Renati, whose real name is Enrico De Pedis, was a charismatic man who was well known and the leader of a gang in the area at the time called Banda della Magliana. This group of men were vicious, and they were known to have either had a hand in or to have been running a lucrative drug trade in Rome, and they were not only known for all of the above. Anyone who knew anything also knew that the bandas were responsible for blackmailing the Vatican for money, and they had a hand in the murder of Robert Calvi. All of this, plus they had the police in their back pockets, allegedly. Disappearance was a hardcore gangster, and in 1990, he was gunned down and killed in an ambush by rival gang members on the otherwise beautiful and picturesque cobblestone streets in the area of the city called Campo di Fiori. After a series of anonymous phone calls to the authorities saying as such, it was widely believed that Emanuela's body was buried in Disappearance's tomb. At the time, her body hadn't been found yet, so it made to most people as much sense or as little as anything else that had been reported to the authorities, anonymously or otherwise, up to that point. His tomb was a bit of an anomaly. Disappearance was a hardcore gangster and criminal, and yet he had been buried at the Opus Dei Basilica of Santa Apollinare. I'm bad with pronunciations, guys, which is close to the Piazza Navona in the center of Rome. This is a sacred burial site, mainly housing the dead bodies of only the most senior and prestigious church officials. Such a notorious and ruthless criminal being buried there was unheard of, and Disappearance had been the only such man in history to have made it his final resting place. Not only was it unheard of, but it was also a clear violation of the actual law. And yet, it was sanctioned by Paletti, and he said he allowed the burial to happen because Disappearance had reformed himself so greatly while in prison, and of course, because of all of his substantial financial donations to the church throughout the years. He had also done a ton of charity work for the poor. For 7 years, the Vatican refused to allow anyone to further investigate whether or not Emanuela's body was there in his tomb because they refused to allow anyone to open it up. During that 7 years, in 2008, one of Disappearance's ex-girlfriends went to the authorities and told them that the late Archbishop Paul Marcinkus helped hire him, and this, combined with the church refusing to allow the tomb to be opened for so long, led to widespread rumors about the church knowing more than they should have about Emanuela's disappearance, and possibly even that they were engaged in a cover-up of whatever crimes had befallen her. Paletti died in 1997, so he obviously couldn't say anything about any of it. And finally, after being pressured from the community, the public, and Emanuela's family, the church agreed to allow the tomb to be opened to see if anything about the rumors were true or if there would be anything else of value there inside that tomb. Almost everyone at that point thought for sure. Most people were certain that Emanuela's body would be found inside of the tomb, right with Paletti's, or that it would just be her body inside and his would be found to be missing. Disappearance wasn't humble or quiet, and his tomb spoke to that, for sure. Emblazoned very large right at the top of the tomb was his name, written in 12,000 euros worth of diamonds. The tomb was opened in a big public spectacle, and when it was, Disappearance's body was found in remarkably good condition, still wearing his nicest dark suit and tie. No other intact bodies were found in the tomb, including Emanuela's, and yes, you heard me correctly. No other intact bodies. However, scattered around the crypt, investigators found all different boxes, nearly 200 of them, containing all different pieces of all different types of unidentified human remains, human bones. This was so shocking to the authorities that they went and opened several more tombs and vaults looking for more body parts and whatever else they could find. I don't think they found anything else, even though my source material isn't very clear on that. But eventually they got to analyzing the remains of the 200 unidentified pieces of bodies that they found. And actually, it wasn't really pieces of bodies. I misspoke here. It was bones. 200 boxes filled with pieces of bones and different types of bones. Even stranger than anything else I've told you so far, at least in my opinion, was all of the bones seemingly dated back to pre-Napoleonic times. In-depth DNA analysis was planned for the bones, but answers seemed elusive and unlikely in regards to Emanuela Orlandi's disappearance, which got somewhat overshadowed by the strange and incredibly bizarre, not to mention macabre, discovery that was made in that tomb. Just so you guys know, the Napoleonic era was from 1799 to 1815, and these bones predated that. So they came from before the year 1799. And by the way, if you're hoping that I'm going to give you some information as to what that was all about, I'm not, because I couldn't find anything that was really connected enough to this case that I should keep talking about it or go down a side quest or rabbit hole in the middle of this video for it. If you want to look more into that, you are more than welcome. So one of the more well-known and most creepiest claims regarding Emanuela Orlandi and her disappearance came in 2012 from one of the top exorcists in the Catholic Church at the time. This was a man named Gabriel Amorth. This man was an officially ordained exorcist, and he said that he had overseen and or had participated in thousands of exorcisms, and what he had to say was very sensational. He claimed publicly that Emanuela Orlandi had been kidnapped in order to be used as a sex slave, I'll just say it, in crazy Vatican sex parties, and after they were done with her, they murdered her in cold blood. The issue here, at least for me, is that the Vatican didn't deny these claims and actually refused to answer any questions about Amorth's claims at all in response to the questions they were being asked. So they didn't say, no, oh my gosh, that's crazy, absolutely, we would never do anything like that. They simply said, no comment. Gabriel Amorth had been 84 years old at the time and had been ordained as a priest in 1954, and he specified that these parties also involved inviting members of an unnamed country's foreign embassy to the Holy See. Again, See being capital S-E-E. He said about it, quote, it had already previously been stated by deceased Monsignor Simeon Duca, an archivist at the Vatican who was asked to recruit girls for parties with the help of the Vatican gendarmes. I don't know what that is. I believe Emanuela ended up in this circle. I have never believed in the international theory, overseas kidnappers. I have motives to believe that this was just a case of sexual exploitation, end quote. Oh, is that all? Just a case of sexual exploitation of a minor child? I will say here, though, that Amorth's claims are said to be better taken with a grain of salt due to the many outrageous and seemingly bizarre statements he had made throughout the years, including, according to other people, because I'm not really sure why this is such a bizarre claim, that Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin had both been possessed by demons or the devil. He also claimed that Pope Pius XII had attempted a long-distance exorcism on Hitler, but that it didn't work. Another thing he very publicly and adamantly insisted was that the Harry Potter books were actually the works and wordings of the devil. So a lot of people think that, right? That J.K. Rowling is a witch and she put actual spells in the books. Maybe she did. So in all this talk about what happened to Emanuela Orlandi, I just wanted to take a few moments and not forget about the young girl who went missing just 40 days before Emanuela disappeared, Mirella Gregory, whose case has also never been solved and whose remains have also never been found. Throughout both of these ordeals, the church has shown very little interest in solving or helping in any way to solve either one of these two cases. Many people familiar with one or both cases wonder if maybe the Vatican knows more than it's letting on about either one or both. One investigator said about it all, quote, there are still people alive and inside the Vatican who do know the truth, end quote. However, there's nothing to back up what that person said or to tell why he thought such a thing in the first place. That's a very general, even though it's a very bold statement. All that's left, guys, in either of these two cases is wild speculation, insane rumors, and tons of internet theories, none of which have led any closer to the closure each of these poor families are still to this day seeking. Was Emanuela Orlandi just a confused kid who ran away? Was this an act of terrorism gone wrong? Or is something much darker at play here, with the Vatican and possibly very high-up church officials being involved, or at the very least knowing what happened to the girls and why? To this day, though, no one really knows what happened, and it's sad that these families still have to wonder every single day what happened to these young girls, to their loved ones. For me, that's the worst part as a human being in general, but particularly as a mother. That's all I have for you today, guys. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed the content, if you enjoyed hanging out with me and spending this time with me. Spread the love by sharing this video. A lot of y'all are not sharing. Also, subscribe if you haven't already, because a ton of y'all are not subscribed. Also, make sure your notification bell is turned on. Even if you think that it is, go back and check. Check out the description box for important links, ways to donate to the channel, because donation is how I get paid, and I do work a 60-hour work week at the very least on this channel to bring content, whatever kind of content it is, to you guys. PayPal, Cash App, my Amazon wish list, gift link. You can become a member. I have some things coming up in the next 2 weeks for members. Something very special having to do with my Friday night stream that I'll talk about more on Friday night. You can also become a patron, and if you pledge $20 a month or more, you will automatically receive a remote general intuitive oracle reading from me to you as a thank you for that. Also, to purchase my books on Amazon, the links to all of my books, Kindle, paperback, and Audible, are in the description box. And if you can't find what you're looking for as far as those links, like if I missed one, because there are so many, and that would be like 30 to 40 links, so it does become a lot. So if I missed any, just go to Amazon and type in Gemma Jade Books. That's all you have to do, and you'll find what you're looking for. If you want autographed copies for any correspondence with me, to set up video sessions or video readings, or to purchase spiritual helper box for me, I still have a ton of the Halloween helper boxes left. Anything at all, GemmaJadeParanormal at gmail.com. Also, to send in your stories of the supernatural, otherworldly, extraterrestrial, paranormal for my listener encounters series. Be kind to each other, guys. It doesn't cost anything. Be kind to yourselves and never accept anything less than others being kind to you. If nobody told you today, you are amazing. You got this. You are perfectly, imperfectly made. And I believe in you. I got your back. Always go in grace. Smile at a stranger. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.